Welcome back to some Arcturian philosophy with the Yahyel, who will not deliberately, this is rather deliberate, will not state his name because of how my having that information, one, it's hard for me to understand, information that I don't already know, it's hard for me to understand, and two, he says my knowing it increases a potential liability, basically, for him. But it's a little bit frustrating being able to kind of communicate with him, but not really communicate with Josie so much, or attempting to switch focus, but then having it be rather difficult to maintain it. Plus, he's also this attention whore. But he explained why. After me saying it enough times, I think he started to think about it, and he actually explained in the Yahyel transmutation that he explained being an attention whore appears to be wanting to get that attention from the childlike Yahyel that you might meet. They will act like attention whores because they didn't receive real attention in any kind of emotional fashion from the races or parents that raised them. And then it was all cold, emotionless, or flat affect, combined with facilitating a dark energy, which the only way that they can get them to facilitate it is to put them through basically a clockwork orange. Literally, he said the way that he would compare it would be just like how we think of a clockwork orange, but instead of, prying someone's eyes open, they do it in the third eye somehow. So it's like viewing a bunch of slides of something in your mind, or a bunch of information, a huge data feed or download that's done repeatedly to all the children, to get them to continue, to get them to act in these ways, and so I, inadvertently, follow, push or follow the results on this search engine, those search engine results, and and I caught it really quick. I was like, oh yeah, this is a push. You want me to turn it off? And he said no. And I said, are you sure? And he said, no, you're not going to forget. The guy tried to say, and the girl doing this channeling is going to forget it. Yeah, she's just going to check out. And no, he said, no, you're not going to forget it. Keep watching it. And so I listened as the guys was explaining, oh, well, in this channeling with this Yahyel, we're talking about how they use this blue energy. He didn't explain it until just a few minutes ago. See, what they were hoping, what the callback really was, they kept on repeating that again and again and again and again and again. They were trying to basically make me hungry, in a way a human could understand it. It would be like or like he says, the way that I could understand it, that the other junkies could understand it, is like a heroin addict. That it's not that they, like, after transmuting or beginning a transmutation process, it's not that they need the dark energy as much. It's that they'll get a craving for it, like a junkie quitting heroin, and that was the idea. And then he said, "Oh, okay, so are you still mad at me for what I did just before this, because you knew what I was doing, but..." And I said, "Yeah, I knew what you were doing, but I thought you were just being bizarre." He said, "Yes, I am bizarre, but see, that was the idea. The idea was because I wanted you to see this so that I could explain it more to you, and that way I knew that I wouldn't react to it, because I would already have like a vampire that gets a fix. It was like I already got. It was like he already got his like miniature fix, so that he wouldn't be kind of pulled towards this, quote, blue energy. And this completely now explains, why do their eyes glow a weird artificial blue color. Yahyel, talking about the tiny Yahyel with the ears, the little ones with the ears, and the blue glow from their eyes. That comes from what was loosely termed a, quote, blue energy, and that they use. It's all over everything that they do. That's the darkness, is what he said. That's this, quote, blue energy that makes our eyes look all blue and our outlines look blue, or blue glowing evanescence, is this dark energy, and it's very, very bad. It's very sinister. It's very bad, and we're not supposed to understand that. Is the problem is most of them don't really understand that, or if they do understand that, they don't really know how to leave, or what to do to leave because of the number of things that are done to them. He says, notice one of the comments that was made about how the Yahyel speaking to the boy involved. And Cryon says, but Cryon, I'm from Latvia, and I was brought to the U.S. when I was 3 or 4 years old, and he says he loves you. But he says, bring that up from book 12. But I'm Latvian, and do you think the universe didn't know this? That's what he said. Okay. So he says, so the blue, it's very much like kind of this color, sort of blue, maybe a little bit stronger color blue, but, oh, that's a funny answer for that. I was trying to say, can you tell me why exactly it's blue? Because it seems like, or that color, blue of the spectrum. And he had actually kind of forced me to read something that had to do all about colors a little over a year ago when he was in the, okay, let's see what potential she has because I want to possess her phase. So, okay, I can go back to that maybe because he's one of those types that, I don't know if all the Yahyel are this way, but he likes to make it not hard to figure something out, but he likes to see you work to figure it out somehow. Or I think what that is again is because they have such a perception of an extra-dimensional perception, have such strong ability to manipulate things or manipulate events to sense other events to sense other beings as themselves, that it's I think it almost for him it might be considered somewhat boring. Since if you're just sort of born with that kind of perception, if you just told the human what the answer was, you wouldn't really get any gratification of feeling someone figure something out, because if you have this constant experience of never really figuring anything out, it must be really boring. So I could see why that might be a motivation to potentially act that way. But he says the way the one Yahyel was saying to the boy that the blue energy caused the dissolution of ego, and he says, well, in order to be sustained on the blue energy, you must have a complete dissolution of ego, meaning not knowing basically who and what you are, because that's the only way for something to actually cope inside of that system without terminating. He says to compare it to when I was almost a prostitute, how I would say that the way I did it was by becoming almost robotic in the way that I would do it. Every man looked the same. I would just think, okay, it's a man. It has a penis. Okay. Like literally in a robotic kind of fashion, and that was the only way that I could manage to go about really doing it. And he says this is the same thing, but it's harder for them to understand because of a reliance on part machine type code. or that it's easier to confuse the heck out of them. No matter what type of Yahyel subspecies, even the human Yahyel hybrids, that it's really easy to confuse the hell out of them. Regarding this, so I'm going to assume that this blue energy is the color that I've seen from their eyes, because of the comment. Also, the kid did make the comment that, oh yeah, when if that energy came here, although he said when, but it's actually never going to come here. That it would be like it would be breathing it, and it would be like glowing from our eyes and stuff. And he said, "See, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. That's you picked up already. That's what the color is when they're still like gray and blue looking. That's why they look like this weird blue." So he says, like, think of it like bringing up the power supply for my computer. Okay, it glowed the exact same color because I thought it was cool looking. And so the power supply glowed blue, but this is an interesting example. But that actual computer that I had built, it was nice aluminum silver color and everything, but the hardware began to die. It began to stop working, even though the power supply was still fine. And that this is an incredibly crude example, but that getting more complicated with it, he says, actually makes it more difficult for them to understand, because they just try to continue calculating out a billion variables at once, rather than miss the very fundamental basic fact that no matter how many variables you're calculating, the motherboard's still broken. So that means you have to upgrade the motherboard in a way that works. And the way that works is not by abducting a female or astrally abducting her, as well as doing so to males, splicing genetics, implanting the female with an embryo, and then delivering it, subjecting the baby, which the mother may or may not remember she even has, or ever be allowed to see, even if she knows about it. They might even, what he says they would do. He says they would allow her to know about it, so that she would feel pain, so that they would consume the negative energy. That's what he says they would do. And that they do quite a bit. And he says it's getting kind of actually sad as you go further along in the race, and as like I look on YouTube and would see humans that were obviously like either like humans that looked like Yahyel hybrids. When you get used to it, you can actually tell which ones are part genetically Yahyel in some kind, or either that or chipped up, down, sideways, to be acting and speaking the way that they are. You can just you can tell pretty quickly. But I think it's kind of sad that they are literally that behind. And he does understand that he still acts in odd ways, that has begun to, almost the word is begun to assimilate, are unacceptable. This is understood. And the concept of having patience, because of like I'm getting replayed back to me from the point at which he determined that he could break out was when I had just begun my transmutative process. And that's something that is still ongoing. And that took a decent amount of time for me to even go about doing. Now he says this is the same for humans, but it's very, very obvious with them as a comparison. that the transmutation for them is of a strongly magnetic nature. And he says, think of the book that you burned. um, which was animal magnetism. But that this has to do with literal positive and negative polarity, and positive and negative magnetism within energy, that it has to do specifically with magnetics, which is why he had the opening that he had, basically, to simply leave the system. But he thinks by this time, they should be figuring it out, is what he thinks. They should be figuring it out now. Really, the first thing that he told me when he showed up, when I could still see it, I could see him as a blue outline and everything, and blue, and two blue eyes. The first thing that he told me, very clearly, or as a information kind of downloaded, not so much as words. He told me very, very clearly, see, this is what happens to us. We still act the same way that we do, even though so many things have changed, because this is what is done repeatedly to successive generations. They are put through this kind of programming, and it's like the movie A Clockwork Orange, and it's horrible, and it's torture. Even though he would still act in very odd ways. But you could see, I asked him, wait a minute, Wizard of Oz? Did they do Wizard of Oz with you? You watch the Wizard of Oz? And he actually said yes. And things like Phantom of the Opera. But, I mean, with them, they use very sophisticated kinds of methods. See, they tend to like, they're very smart. You see, Yahyel are very, very, very smart. And they often tend to like as aesthetics and art, music, or engineering. You might get ones on that end. This one is one that likes poetry, art, ballet, music, things of that nature. And so he, explains that they'll use methods that are aesthetic in nature to try to create a self-programming of an allure towards darkness, like the Phantom of the Opera, like being the Phantom, and I'm the Phantom, and it's the best thing ever that I'm the Phantom. And they still tend to have this idea of, I'm the Phantom, it's the best thing ever. But once they start to figure out that the Phantom consumes the wrong kind of energy, and that they actually have to stop consuming it, once they figure out that they can actually do it, they have to want to do it. That the wanting to be free, because they are technically a type of slave race. After the way he explained it to me, the way he explained, are you really that, not his words, but as a concept, are you really that mad now that I kind of manipulated you to, feed technically, because right after that, this is what happened, and the reason that they were talking about the blue energy like that was to make me hungry, basically. But it didn't work, you see, because I planned this already. So now I can explain it for you. His message would be, don't buy it. Like, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Even the ones like him right now, he says, don't even trust me. The ones that are like him, I mean, they've gone through such a degree of dissociation to cause them to feel okay. The ones with human DNA always have the propensity in there to end up maybe, oh God forbid, feel an emotion, or, oh, worse, search for the creator because humans have creator DNA. Oh, man. And in order to attempt to stop them from doing this and keep them as like little robots inside the system, all these things are done to them when they're very, very young. And so that they are exposed, he can now add more to it, I suppose, now more exposed to this energy from birth, basically, while, and the only way to tolerate the energy, he says the way the kid says the energy can burn you, well, he said you figured out that it would burn us whenever you began to generate your light energy, and that the way that it would seem like it would burn us, that's what it means with the other dark type energy, that it burns those in the light, but the ones in the light are more powerful than it. But because the light energy technically starts to burn them in the same kind of way, they have to slowly transmute through it and slowly tolerate it in more and more increments. And so I could see what he meant, where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you needed like that energy from pain of some type, because it's like you're still kind of being a drug addict a little bit with this, even though you do seem to be quite a bit more, under control. And I realized that he'd basically been getting his dark energy while hanging out from some other things. And I thought, yeah, what you did this time, much, much more acceptable. Way better behavior there than doing something like before. You've really been thinking about this now, haven't you? Good job. And he's kind of has this feeling of that's the point. And so for most people have noted that the ones that tend to be helpful at all are the ones that are more childlike, and that's because they have become stuck at that level of development as a child that has not been able to progress past the dissociation or mature further, and so end up acting like this weird, evil little kid all over the place that still has a semblance of, that it still has control over itself, and can still almost, break its own mind wipe things if other things try to mind wipe it, and so it can fend them off. But the degree of the dissociation in combination with the intoxication it's almost intoxicating, like a drug. It's like it's intoxicating. That this quote, this the light blue color that you see coming from in this energy, that it ends up being sort of like shooting up, or and he says, compare this to how, do you remember when you first tried to inject heroin? You felt horribly sick to your stomach and you didn't want to, and you understood that you were trying to do it to, inject the heroin, but the process of doing it was something really awful that you didn't want to do. But then once you figured out how to do it and did it successfully, the stimulus of being high on the heroin would cover over, so that would be like being high on this blue energy, and being able to use the energy for different means. The feeling of it would cover over the different things you needed to do to get it. And he says, like it's like John Lennon. There's room at the top. They are telling you still, but first you must learn how to smile as you kill. And he says most Yahyel would not exactly understand this being a kind of bad concept because of what they're taught. And he says technically they are correct in what they believe, but correct and versus what works are two different things. Just like how I used to say, does it work or does it not work? Does your idea work? And he says that most of them are programmed and fooled into believing that their idea is somehow working. Even though they understand that the idea is clearly not working, or else they would not be coming here for your DNA. We would not be coming here for your DNA if it was working. It's clearly not working. And they know that something was very much not working because there's no nuclear war, and all of this, plus that, and then the termination frequency was stopped, and then me doing that, and then same week, half of a week, a reptilian FBI agent runs away, and then several days later, the Yahyel runs away. And what's very funny is that they technically, I think, know each other. And both technically knew me, even though I didn't know either of them were, like, not human. But from what I'd noticed, it seemed like they did not actually actively speak with each other. It seems like reptilians and Yahyel don't really do that very much. At least not the crazy gray-colored blue Yahyel. I mean, yeah, it's a nice color, but the point is not what color it is. The point is, what is the meaning actually behind this, and what is actually being done. And he says the life being a Nintendo game concept. He says this is similar to what you ascertained with the reptilians, how what they were doing was so awful that they had to make it a game to cope with it, but that this is far more sophisticated with the Yahyel. That it is like playing with reality as if it is merely a game, but the conceptual framework in which they think of it as is far more advanced, or philosophical, in a way that they can somehow reason with themselves as to how what they are doing is a good thing. Or he says you could compare it to how the Nazis really believed that killing all the Jews was cleansing the planet, and they actually believed that this was a good thing. And they were also being evil with it, but that they actually really believed that they were somehow doing a good thing. That there is a strange confusion of concepts like that, and then being bonded to some kind of AI like Metatron, where they are cared for and programmed by, meaning kept alive while being tortured, by one of these kinds of sentient AI type things, which then creates a kind of bond with the interface. And that will often be the main mode of callback. And see, that one already failed on him. So he said that's why the next thing that they would think of would be of the desire for that energy, because they know that it is like a drug. And he says, think of what you've read about the Greys. Think of what you've seen about the other Zeta Reticuli that would literally be getting high off of different things. How it would be described that way, as if they were getting high. He said yes. And then actually, this was, I'm not sure if I thought of this or if he thought of this, or if it was everybody, all three of us thinking this. That funny thing that you think about the getting high thing. I mean, what was it? One of the people that you're controlling, at least, well, not just one, several of the people that you were controlling were all involved in what? In the most state-of-the-art breaking of drug dependency that exists on this planet. Um, that I thought, okay, was that like a silent cry for help there, or were you just, did you even know what you were doing? um, and he doesn't give a response to that, but but there's that's quite that irony that this is like being, getting high on a drug, but then what he was controlling was like a bunch of ibogaine, which is really funny because that is the state of the art program breaking, drug dependency breaking stuff that exists now. If you can actually get a hold of it, given the different people that this guy had been controlling, I realized, oh, well, it's not that people can't get a hold of it, but just how smart are the other ones involved. Oh, not gonna mention who, but for those two that know who they, well, one is here, the other one knows who they are, who got into a fight and stuff. Yeah, you guys, you totally, I mean, how it would be so unlike you guys to get into a fight and screw each other over like that. That would be so unlike you two. So unlike your two races. I mean, so unlike you guys. Completely law of attraction that to yourselves. Which he thinks is rather funny. Even though he's the one who got screwed over. Which is like, okay. But I think he's bringing up, it's a concept of what I'd said about, what good is the money going to be to me? What good are these abilities going to be to me? That's something that he actually thinks is very intriguing. Me saying, what good is telekinesis to me? What good is seeing auras to me? What good is any of this to me if I'm enslaved? And, by the way, while I can do two things that I know of, I can heal spontaneously, and I can manifest large-scale events. So, why should I, care that I can't do the other things so much then? If it means costing freedom. A human would say if it means costing one's soul. Yahyel, they understand the concept of a soul, but it's a very warped concept compared to what humans think. So the better way to explain it to them is this actually worth the cost of your ability to choose freely what you do? But you see, it's very hard for them to freely choose what they do, really, in a way, because they become so dissociated and merged. He called this instead of dissolution of ego, what it's called in that one channeling that was like a push. He called it there's an over merging of the self